Very soon, we'll hear from President Trump in his first news conference since his son's email stirred up even more Russia controversy for this White House. The president will take questions from reporters alongside the French president next hour. This comes as Republican sources describe the White House right now as paralyzed after the development that Donald Trump Jr. not only took a meeting with someone billed as a Russian government attorney, but also one promising information that would damage Hillary Clinton and help his father's campaign that would come straight from the Russian government. Trump Jr. now says he would have handled the whole thing differently. The president himself, however, said to Reuters yesterday many people would have taken that meeting. Joining me now to discuss, member of the House Intelligence Committee, which of course is investigating the Russia connections, Democratic Congressman from California, Eric Swalwell. Congressman, thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Kate. Thanks for having me on.
So we have the news this hour from Manu Raju that Chuck Grassley on the Senate Judiciary Committee, he's sending a letter to Don Jr. to ask him to testify in a public session before his committee. The chair of your committee, though, however, wouldn't say if he wanted Don Jr. to come testify. Do you have any indication that he's going to be asked?
I hope he does. He's a relevant witness who met with Russians during the Russian interference campaign and before the election. So if you have a list of people who should be before our committee, I think he ranks at the very top.
You already, as far as we know, have one person from that meeting scheduled to come before the committee, the former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. What questions do you have now in light of this news that was scheduled before? What questions do you now have for Paul Manafort?
Yeah, Kate, and we have an agreement with the Republicans that we don't go into, who's coming or when they're coming. But I'll just say generally, what we want to know is who met with Russians during the interference campaign. What was the purpose of the meeting? What information was exchanged? And why weren't contacts reported to the FBI? Why have contacts only been reported once they've been reported in the press? Those are all fair questions and can tell us a lot about just what the Trump campaign was up to during Russia's interference campaign.
Is there a new urgency, though, in light of the emails to get these individuals before the committee?
Yes, there's always a fear once information like this becomes public that witnesses could destroy evidence, and that's just generally in any case. And so we want to gather as much of the evidence, talk to as many of the witnesses as soon as possible. We don't want witnesses to start working together, cooking up a story. We want to talk to them while the information is still closely guarded and before it becomes too public and they can come up with innocent explanations to cover what could be, quite concerning behavior.
Let me ask you, Congressman. President Trump argued yesterday in an interview that regardless of any meetings, that he doesn't think that Vladimir Putin was in his corner. Listen to this.
If Hillary had won, our military would be decimated. Our energy would be much more expensive. That's what Putin doesn't like about me. And that's why I say, why would he want me? Because from day one, I wanted a strong military. He doesn't want to see that. And from day one, I want fracking and everything else to get energy prices low and to create tremendous energy. He doesn't want that. He would like Hillary, where she wants to have windmills.
Congressman, would Vladimir Putin have been better off with Hillary Clinton as president?
Kate, I don't even want to go there because if you think about the trajectory of what Donald Trump is doing, he has gone from saying no Russia, no collusion, never met with Russians. He has now been confronted with a number of contacts that his team has had with Russia, and it looks like the explanation is going to be, well, we had to do this because Hillary would have been awful and we were going to make America great again. I mean, it's sickening that is now where he wants to take us because the evidence has become so overwhelming that he and his campaign were working with the Russians.
Well, there is evidence that there was a willingness to have a meeting, but again, if you listen to a lot of what President Trump says, he often was quite careful in his language saying, I never was aware of a meeting. I never had a meeting.
Yeah, it's clear that his son did and his campaign chairperson did and his son-in-law did. And again, Kate, what I'm afraid of is that he is now going to try and turn this to, well, we're all better off. Wouldn't we have all wanted to know this information by the Russians? So what that we had to cheat to get it? I mean, that is a very disturbing movement that we're seeing in this story. Again, remember, it started with no Russians, no collusion, and now it's starting to drift more towards, well, we'd be better off without Hillary.
A few Democrats now have said that with the emails, this is approaching treason in their view. I'll tell you that I don't think I've heard a single legal analyst say that that is where we are at this point. Are your fellow Democrats going too far?
My job is to make sure the American people understand who, if anyone, was working with the Russians, and then what we can do most importantly so this never happens again. I will leave the conclusions as to what it was criminally to Robert Mueller and his probe. We just want to put a report out to the American people about what happened, and I really think that once people are judged on what they did and held accountable, the most important thing we can do for the health of the democracy is to make sure we're never in a position again where a foreign adversary can do this.
So you're withholding judgment. Do you think your fellow Democrats should as well, rather than go to treason right now?
We shouldn't jump to any conclusions until all of the evidence is tested, developed. I'll tell you, though, Kate, when you look at the evidence of the Don Jr. meeting, everything came into a lot more focus as far as all of these other meetings that the Trump campaign had with Russians where they were offering innocent explanations. Now, those explanations don't seem so innocent, but again, a thorough investigation should be conducted, and then we'll take the law and the facts. Yep.
I'm so sorry. If you could hold on with me just 1 second. I want to go over to a different part of Capitol Hill. Paul Ryan speaking right now, taking questions. Let's listen in.
These other options, or now that you've passed something, do you sort of think you've done your part in this?
As tempting as it is to comment on the Senate's deliberation and their process, I want to give them the space to get their job done. We have a promise to keep, and we kept that promise in the House. I look forward to seeing the Senate do the same.
Can I follow up? Would the House stay in session through August if they need to come back?
If the Senate is going to give us a health care bill, we're going to stay and finish the health care bill.
Speaker Ryan, Senator Grassley is sending a letter to Donald Trump Jr., asking him to testify about his meeting. Should the president's son testify in public?
I think any witness who's been asked to testify before Congress should testify.
In public?
I'll leave that up to the witness and the Senate to decide that, the committees. But anybody who is asked to testify to the Senate should do that.
A bill to reauthorize the FAA could come to the floor as soon as next week. There's been some changes to it from the effort last year, but the crux of it is the same, to remove air traffic control operations from FAA. You didn't bring it to the floor last year. What's changed this year that makes you support it now?
Well, I'll defer the specific questions to Chairman Schuster, but this bill is changed substantially. That's why I think you see so much more support for this bill than you did last year. We're going through the conversations with our members on this bill right now. It's a big change. Look, here's the problem with the FAA. We're in the 20th century. We have a 20th century system in the 21st century. We need to upgrade the entire air traffic control system for lots of reasons, for safety and for efficiency. Chairman Schuster put together a very impressive effort with a lot more support than we had last year, and he's now educating members and getting their feedback on how to do it. I don't even think we've whipped it yet, so I think we're whipping it probably today is my recollection. So we'll see how that goes.
Did the president's support help move the needle, do you think, for members?
Yeah, I think the president's support did help. Yeah. Yeah.
Talk Media News. On the human trafficking bills, do you think local law enforcement agencies are well equipped?
All right, Paul Ryan in his weekly press conference taking questions there from reporters. Guys, do we still have Congressman Swalwell with me? Oh, great, Congressman. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. You could hear right there when asked about the Grassley letter to Don Jr., who was very careful in his language, saying anybody who's asked to testify before the Senate should do just that. I know you will agree with the House Speaker on that front. But a final question for you on what we are learning and all that we have learned regarding the meeting, the emails, what folks knew, what folks didn't know. Do you take the president's word for it that he did not know about the meeting and he wasn't aware of the meeting until just a couple days ago?
I hate saying this, Kate, but I don't think we can take the president's word for that, and I wouldn't say that for any other president other than Nixon, and that's because the president's deceitful claims about President Obama wiretapping him, which were proved to be false, his claims that there were tapes with James Comey, which have proved to be false. So I think we have to make sure we really test that and corroborate whether that's true or not.
And Congressman, how do you test that? I mean, one option may be asking Don Jr., who was in the meeting, to testify under oath.
Well, the way you test it is by hearing from relevant witnesses, requesting documents, trying to get any electronic communications that could verify or repudiate what the president said.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kate.
All right, we're also